Hello, and welcome to this KSP video. In this series, I'm going to be doing tutorials for some of the things that aren't touched on much, and some of the things that are. I don't know, just a tutorial series. So, let's start. When you load in, you're going to want to click Start Game, understandably. Then, Start New, assuming you haven't created anything. Go to Sandbox if you're new, it'll make things easier just for your first try. I'm just gonna call this save tutorial 1 or something like that. But you can call it whatever you want. You can also mess around with the flag, make custom flags. I'm not gonna make a tutorial on that, you can just look up one. I might make one later, but not anytime soon. You can also mess with the difficulty, but don't do that if you're new. So, start. Give it a minute to load. This game does take a while to load, but you should be good. So, once it loads in, which will be in about 1 second, you'll get a little thing. I'd read that, but I'm not going to read it right now. Just once you're done, click thanks, I've got it. Then go to that building, the vehicle assembly building, the one shaped like a giant shoebox. Give it another minute to load, and once it loads, you should be greeted with this screen. Once you read that, click thanks, I got it. Probably just noticed a slight change in the video. That was just me switching over to my regular account. So first of all, you should be able to click arts, and once you click your first part, it will just automatically load in. But after that, you'll have to click them, and it'll just automatically drag it. You don't have to hold it. Then you click it again once it's attached to a node, and it'll automatically attach. Now, there's different types of parts. This first section are command parts, or command modules, or whatever. These control your ship. They provide controls. Without it, your ship is just a fuel tank, and an engine. Nothing much. There's different types, but that doesn't really matter for today's lesson. There's fuel tanks. There's a few different types of fuel that I will go over. There's liquid fuel and oxidizer, which is the first one, which you'll see in just a second now. There we go. That's liquid fuel and oxidizer. It's liquid fuel, I'm assuming you know, because it needs to burn something. It's a rocket. And the oxidizer, because since rockets go into space, there's no oxygen in space, or no air. It's a vacuum, so you need to have your own supply of oxygen, usually liquid oxygen or some other similar chemical. There's monopropellant. It's monopropellant, single propellant. It burns on its own. And xenon gas, which is for another type of engine that won't be discussed in this video. There's also ore, which can be mined and turned into fuel, but I'll talk about that a bit more later. So next is engines. There's a couple different types of engines. First of all, there's jet engines, but those aren't really important for today's video. I'll cover those later. Next, there are rocket engines. These are your regular engines. This specifically is a liquid fuel engine that uses that liquid fuel oxidizer I just talked about. There's one engine that uses monopropellant, but it's not important. Also, I know that looked like 4 engines, but it was a single engine just with 4 different exhaust nozzles. This is a single exhaust nozzle engine. Also, you'll notice I was clicking those buttons. Those allow me to change how it looks. This is a solid rocket engine. That means it uses solid propellant. You can't throttle these. Once it's lit, and you better be prepared for the consequences of that decision to light it. Some of the have different features and stuff, but they are generally just for a really good extra kick, since they have a lot of thrust. Next thing is command and control. These things are for maneuvering your spacecraft. That's a reaction wheel. It's kind of like a gyroscope, but just think of it as you put electricity in it and your ship can turn. Next are these RCS thrusters, which stands for Reaction Control System, I think. They're basically really tiny rockets that use monopropellant, except for that last one, which uses liquid fuel, to push your rocket into the correct orientation. Next is structure, which is just general structure components, metal plates, girders, that kind of stuff. There are those little clamps that help hold your rocket down on liftoff, but those aren't needed. There's also robotics, which I'm just going to skip over for a later video. Decouplers. These are one of your best friends. They can separate two pieces of spacecraft, so I'm just going to attach two fuel tanks to either side of this one. If I activated that decoupler, they would separate. Obviously, I can't do that now since I'm in the editor, but or the VAB, but if I was in flight, I could. Next, electric charge, or, sorry, cargo. Not cargo, I forgot, something like that. Anyways, these just hold, your stuff. Those are fairings and stuff. Just skipped over wheels and aerodynamic components. Those are just fins and stuff. This is a heat shield, one of your best friends. This will help you to prevent your ship from exploding on re-entry. These are electric components. That's an RTG, a fascinating piece of technology. I recommend you look that up. Fuel cell, it converts liquid fuel to electricity, and solar panels. Or no, that's a battery. Solar panels come next. I'm assuming you know what a battery is and a solar panel is. Communications. There are two types of antennas in this game. I was just getting a fuel tank to put them on. There are relay antennas and direct antennas. So that first antenna right there is a direct antenna, and the second one that I'm going to place is a relay antenna. And first of all, before you can use it, you will have to left click it and extend it. You can edit with parts and their properties by left clicking them. So a direct antenna sends a signal directly somewhere. A relay antenna, how do I explain this? For example, the direct antenna could send a signal to that relay antenna, which could then send the signal home. That's basically what a relay antenna is. If you want a more in-depth explanation, I explain that in my third episode of the Conquer Minmus series. Next is science. These aren't that important if you're going on the sandbox version of the game, but if there are other versions where it's necessary. But I usually use them because they just give you funny information about the different planets and stuff. Yeah. And they have different properties and all that. Those are actually what fairings are very helpful with, since they are very sensitive. Cargo, you can take these things, those two parts you see there that are highlighted and no longer highlighted. You can put those scientific components in them, and then astronauts can grab those components out of them and place them down for long-range scientific experiments on the surface. The final thing is these. These are decals. You can place whatever flag you have on the side of a ship or whatever, I don't know. Yeah, there's all sorts of sizes, and you can edit the size further if you want. Next are these passenger things, passenger components. This is in the utility section, the bottom one. These, they can carry astronauts, but they can't, the astronauts can't control anything. They're just passengers. They can't do anything. Next is ladders. You just place those on. You can extend them and stuff to help your astronauts get onto the surface of planets and stuff. These are radial parachutes. I forgot to mention what radial is. It means on the side. And that's an inline parachute. These help you land safely. Also, that radial thing, I'll explain that in a later episode. There are also these, which convert ore, which I talked about a little while ago, to fuel. So, and you need drills to collect ore in those ore tanks, which you can then, combined with some electric charge, can turn into fuel. And that final thing is just an escape tower that, if your rocket's exploding, will help you safely get away with your astronauts. Unless you're cruel and would like to just have them die instead of adding one extra part. I know too many people who don't add an escape system. Just let the astronauts live. It's so nice. well, that's about all I had to say. In the top left, you should see a link to one of my other videos, and in the top right, you should see a link, or in the just in the right, you should see a link to my channel. Um, uh, Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and have a good day.